Welcome back to the All Sorts podcast, you guys. Today we're diving deep into Stoicism.
Yeah.
Using the Stoic Handbook by Eric Weigard as our guide. And it's not just going to be like, some dusty history lesson, right?
Right.
It's about finding practical wisdom that we can actually use in our lives today.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've already had a chance to kind of peek into this world a little bit. What's grabbing your attention so far?
What's really fascinating to me is how Weigart brings these ancient ideas to life in a way that just feels so relevant to our everyday struggles, you know? He doesn't just present Stoicism as some dusty philosophy. He makes it a personal journey.
He does. He totally does.
Yeah.
I love when he talks about those sharecropper shacks that he saw when he was hitchhiking through the Carolinas.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, most of them were run down, but every so often you'd see one that just stood out. It was painted. It had, bright curtains and a little garden.
Mm-hmm.
Such a beautiful metaphor for Stoicism, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's that reminder that even when things are tough, even in those difficult circumstances, we can still choose to cultivate beauty and meaning in our lives. I mean, that's what Stoicism is all about,
Right.
Finding that inner strength, that resilience.
So, for someone who is maybe just dipping their toes into Stoicism for the very first time, what would you say is the core idea that Weigart really emphasizes in the Stoic Handbook?
He really drives home this point.
Okay.
That most of us, we're not even using our full reasoning abilities. We get so caught up in all these distractions and anxieties and, the daily grind that we lose sight of what it really means to seek wisdom and to live a virtuous life.
Yeah, it's like we're settling for those rundown shacks when we could be creating something so much more beautiful and fulfilling.
Totally. Yeah. That's the challenge Stoicism presents, to strive for what he calls a noble mind.
Yeah.
It's about reaching our full potential as human beings.
And that potential is really rooted in virtue.
Right?
That seems to be a central theme that keeps coming up.
Oh, absolutely. The Stoics believed that virtue is the only true good.
Yeah.
It's the foundation for living a truly flourishing life. And they identify 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance.
Okay. So let's unpack these 4 virtues a little bit.
Okay.
What does it mean to be wise in a Stoic sense?
Wisdom for the Stoics is about understanding the world.
Okay.
And your place in it. Recognizing what you can and can't control. The dichotomy of control.
Oh, yeah. That dichotomy of control seems incredibly relevant today, don't you think?
Totally. I mean, we're constantly bombarded with information and pressures,
right?
So many of which are outside our control. And Stoicism is that reminder to focus our energy on what we can influence, which are our actions and choices.
Our reactions. It's about shifting that perspective.
Yeah.
Focusing on our inner world.
Right.
Rather than getting lost in all the chaos.
Right.
Of external events.
Exactly. And that brings us to justice.
Okay.
For the Stoics, justice isn't just about following laws. It's about doing what is right.
Okay.
And treating others fairly, even when it's hard.
Weigart even compares it to what we might call tough love today.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not about being nice all the time. It's about doing what truly benefits others.
Yeah.
Even if it's not always pleasant.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's about acting in a way that benefits the common good, not just our own self-interest. Okay, so how about courage? What does it mean to be courageous in the Stoic sense?
Courage, for the Stoics, is about facing our fears and challenges head on.
Okay.
Whether they're internal or external. It's about acting virtuously, even when it's uncomfortable or even dangerous.
So, speaking up against injustice, even if it puts you at risk, that could be an act of courage.
Exactly. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard. And it's closely tied to the virtue of temperance.
Right, temperance. So what does that mean in a Stoic context?
Temperance is about moderation and self-control. It's about finding balance in all things and avoiding excess.
So whether it's, indulging in too much food or letting our anger get the best of us, temperance is about finding that middle ground.
Precisely.
Okay.
It's about making choices that are in line with reason and virtue.
Yeah.
Rather than giving into our impulses.
These 4 virtues, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, they seem so interconnected, don't they? You can't really have one without the others.
Yeah, that's a key insight. They work together to create a virtuous and flourishing life.
Yeah.
They provide this framework for making better decisions and navigating the challenges of life.
Now, there's this big idea in Stoicism that Weigart explores in the Stoic Handbook, this idea of living in agreement with nature. And it always sounds kind of cryptic to me. Like, what does it actually mean?
It's a concept that is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean we all need to go live in a forest.
Right, I was just wondering about that.
Right. It's more about recognizing that we are part of this larger rational order.
Okay.
And it's about using our reason, to guide our actions in a way that aligns with that order and with virtue.
So it's not about rejecting the world or escaping from it. It's about finding our place within it.
Right.
And acting in a way that's harmonious with the natural order of things.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And it's closely connected to the Stoic understanding of virtue and the 4 cardinal virtues we just discussed.
This is already giving me a lot to think about. You've mentioned a few really key insights from the Stoic Handbook, but before we kind of dig even deeper into some of the specific practices that Weigart outlines, I just want to pause for a moment and ask you, what's standing out to you so far about Stoicism and how it relates to the Stoic Handbook?
What's striking to me is how Weigart takes these sometimes like abstract Stoic concepts and he makes them so tangible.
Yeah.
Like he offers these practical exercises that we can actually use in our lives.
Exactly. He doesn't just tell us like, hey, this is what Stoicism is.
Right.
He shows us how to live it. And one of the most intriguing and maybe like initially intimidating practices he talks about is this idea of negative visualization.
Right.
And I'll admit, when I first read about this, I was like, why would I want to like dwell on negative thoughts?
Yeah.
Like that seems kind of counterintuitive.
It definitely challenges like our usual way of thinking.
Right.
But it's not about being pessimistic or dwelling on negativity.
Yeah.
It's about mentally preparing for challenges and appreciating what we already have.
Okay, so how does that work? Like, how do we practice negative visualization?
So it involves intentionally imagining the loss of things we value.
Okay.
Our loved ones, our possessions, our health.
Yeah.
And we kind of walk ourselves through those potential losses in our minds.
That sounds pretty intense. What's the benefit of doing that?
So by confronting these potential losses, we become less attached to them.
Okay.
We start to see them not as these permanent fixtures, but as things we're fortunate to have right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it cultivates gratitude. And it makes us less afraid of losing them.
So it's like a mental fire drill for life's inevitable challenges.
Yeah, exactly.
Like by preparing for that worst case scenario, we're less likely to be totally thrown off balance when things actually go wrong.
Exactly. And Weigart gives some really good examples in the Stoic Handbook. He even talks about visualizing the death of a loved one.
Whoa, that's a tough one to imagine.
It is, but the point isn't to dwell on the sadness or the grief. It's to prompt us to cherish the time we have with them right now.
Right.
It's about appreciating the present moment instead of taking it for granted.
Yeah, I can see how that would really shift your perspective.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of that other Stoic practice that Weigart discusses, the control dichotomy exercise.
Yes, that's a core practice.
Yeah, can you remind me how that works?
So it's about regularly asking yourself, what aspects of this situation are within my control?
Okay.
And what are not?
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to focus our efforts on what we can actually influence.
Right.
Like our own choices and actions, and then to accept what we can't change.
It's like that classic serenity prayer, right? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Exactly. And it's a powerful tool.
It is.
For navigating the ups and downs of life.
Let's say you're stuck in traffic, something that I think we all experience.
Right.
You know, instead of getting all frustrated and angry, which doesn't actually change the situation, you focus on what you can control, like listening to a podcast.
Right.
Making a phone call, or just practicing some mindful breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly. You're choosing how to respond to the situation rather than letting it control your emotions.
It's empowering, isn't it?
It is.
It takes away that feeling of being a victim of circumstances.
Right.
Now, Weigart also talks about journaling as a key Stoic practice. So what role does journaling play in this whole philosophy?
So journaling is about self-reflection and growth.
Okay.
It's about taking the time to really examine our thoughts and our emotions and our actions.
Okay.
Especially in light of Stoic principles. Did we respond virtuously to that difficult situation?
Right.
Where could we have done better?
So it's not just about venting our feelings. It's about consciously analyzing our behavior and identifying areas where we can improve.
Exactly. It's about aligning our actions with our values and striving to live more virtuously each day.
Yeah, I can definitely see the value in that.
Yeah.
It's like having a personal coach for our character development.
The Stoics were big on self-improvement. They saw it as an ongoing process, a lifelong pursuit.
Wiegert highlights this idea so beautifully when he talks about this Stoic concept of making progress. And it's not about achieving some perfect state of being.
Right.
It's about constantly striving to live in accordance with nature and virtue.
Right.
And it reminds me of a passage in the Stoic Handbook where he quotes Epictetus saying, "If you wish for good, receive it from yourself."
Okay.
It's such a powerful statement about taking ownership
Yeah.
of our own well-being and happiness.
It is, and it highlights how these Stoic practices, negative visualization, the control dichotomy, journaling, they're all tools for cultivating that inner good.
Right.
They're about strengthening our character and finding peace within ourselves,
Yeah.
regardless of what's happening externally.
And I'm curious to hear more about how these Stoic ideas actually played out in the lives of some of the most famous Stoics,
Right.
like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
Like, these weren't just philosophers writing in ivory towers.
Right.
They faced incredible challenges and pressures. How did Stoicism help them navigate those really difficult times?
You know, it's amazing to me how Stoicism is like having this resurgence
I know.
in the 21st century, right?
Yeah.
Like this philosophy
It's so true.
from ancient Greece and Rome,
Right.
and it's speaking to people now.
Yeah.
There's got to be something about these ideas
Yeah,
that transcends time and cultures.
totally. I mean, you see people from all walks of life
Yeah.
turning to Stoicism.
Hmm.
CEOs, athletes, artists. It's not just for philosophers anymore.
Right.
Like, what do you think is driving this renewed interest?
You know, Wiegert talks about this in the Stoic Handbook, I think. He says Stoicism offers this really powerful antidote
Yeah.
to the anxieties of modern life. I mean, we are constantly bombarded with information, deadlines, pressures. It's so easy to feel overwhelmed,
Oh, totally overwhelming.
out of control.
Yeah, it's like we're all on this treadmill.
Right.
And we can't get off.
Exactly.
Right. It's just go, go, go.
And Stoicism provides the tools for regaining that sense of control. Not by changing the world around us, but by changing our own perceptions
Right.
and reactions.
It's that dichotomy of control that we talked about earlier.
Yes.
Right.
That is so relevant.
Super relevant
Yeah.
in our always on hyper-connected world.
Yeah, it's a game changer. Like, by focusing on what we can influence, our own choices and actions, we free ourselves from, like, the tyranny of things we can't change.
Yeah, it's like Stoicism gives us this mental filter to help us like sort through all the noise and chaos of modern life.
Right.
And just focus on what truly matters.
And it emphasizes personal responsibility
Yeah.
and virtue, which I think is kind of countercultural these days.
It is.
You know, we're told to seek external validation, to chase after status and possessions. And Stoicism reminds us that true happiness and fulfillment come from within. From living a life guided by virtue and reason.
It's about being true to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And like living in alignment with our values, not trying to keep up with the Joneses or chasing after fleeting trends.
And that's incredibly empowering.
It is.
Because it takes the pressure off
Right.
of needing to conform to external expectations. And it allows us to focus on what really matters to us. And I think that's why people are finding Stoicism so relevant today.
Right. It's not about achieving some perfect state of being. It's about striving to live virtuously each day, even in the face of challenges. I think that's what Weigart's getting at when he talks about making progress
Yes.
in the Stoic Handbook.
Absolutely. It's about the direction we're heading, the intention behind our actions. And he even talks about how setbacks can be valuable opportunities for learning and growth.
That's a powerful shift in perspective.
It is.
I love how Stoicism kind of reframes challenges as opportunities for growth. It reminds me of that line from the Stoic Handbook, adversity reveals men.
Yes, that's Epictetus.
Yeah.
And it speaks to that Stoic belief that challenges can reveal our true character and help us develop our virtues.
So it's not about avoiding hardship. It's about using it to become stronger or resilient.
And that's something we can all learn from, whether we consider ourselves Stoics or not. Life is full of challenges.
Right.
And Stoicism gives us that framework
It does.
for facing them with courage and wisdom.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to touch on this idea of the enduring relevance of Stoicism. Why do you think these ideas that were developed, thousands of years ago are still resonating so deeply with people today?
Well, Vigart makes the point that Stoicism speaks to something fundamental about the human experience. We all face uncertainties, setbacks, loss. We all long for meaning and purpose. And Stoicism offers this timeless wisdom that transcends cultural boundaries.
It's universal.
And historical periods.
It's like it taps into this universal desire for inner peace and fulfillment, regardless of our external circumstances.
Exactly. And those desires are as relevant today as they were in the time of Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. Like, we may have different technologies and social structures, but the fundamental challenges of being human haven't really changed that much.
That's a really comforting thought. It's like we have this ancient wisdom tradition that we can draw upon as we navigate the complexities of modern life.
And that's what makes the Stoic Handbook such a valuable resource. Weigart bridges that gap between those ancient ideas and our modern world. He shows us how those time-tested principles can be applied to the challenges we face today.
Well, it's been an amazing journey exploring the depths of Stoicism with you. And for all our listeners out there who are just as captivated by this ancient wisdom as we are, we invite you to join our vibrant community of fellow explorers. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the All Sorts podcast on YouTube and follow us on X, Instagram, and Threads. We're your trusted compass, guiding you through a labyrinth of knowledge, uncovering hidden gems of wisdom, and sparking those aha moments that make life's journey so much richer. And never forget, as the Stoics remind us, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Until next time, keep exploring.
It's been a pleasure.